Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I've got it in the bag for you today. I'll try to keep it briefer than my previous ones. It's been almost a year since I've done an in the bag, or in this case in the cart, and I've changed up about half the discs I normally throw. Still throwing from the Innova collection. Essentially, if Innova makes it, I'm pretty much putting it in here, but it has to fit in certain slots. With that said, I'm back again with the ZÜCA cart. Love this thing. I'm going to keep using it. I can fit a couple of these in my trunk. Same thing when I'm with Sean, putting a couple of these in the back of his car, and we just head out to play disc golf. The compact cart is probably the easiest and quickest to carry around. It's relatively light, but I load it up with all my YouTube stuff in addition to the disc golf stuff, which is primarily what it's for. With that said, I keep all the mids and fairway drivers and drivers here, some putters here, and then some utility putters here, and then I've got the putter pocket here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this thing around. We're going to start with the putter pocket. Okay, so here's the putter pocket. I currently have 5 putters in there. I sometimes will put a 6th one right here, but I think for now I'm going with this particular lineup, and I don't necessarily need a ton of discs. So first and foremost is the Aviar in R-Pro plastic, Rubber Pro. It's soft, it's grippier than most of the plastics that Innova has now, and it's great for putting. I've been putting with Aviar for 4 years now. Love it, and this is going to continue to be my putting putter for this year. Now we're for the approach putters that I put in the putter pocket. Here's the Animal. It's a straight flying putter. It's a little bit slower than the Aviar, just as grippy in the Nexus plastic, and it's what I use for the straight up shots. I'm trying to minimize using my putting putter as an approach disc, so that's where this comes in. It's also flat, board flat, and it's great for backhand and sidearm. And so that's what I use it for. So approaches, Animal, love it. Next up, R-Pro Rhyno. I need stability here, and this overlaps with the Aviar XT that used to be in this bag, just like this overlaps a little bit with the Aviar 3 in the bag. So I took those out because they were in Star and Champion plastic. The theme of this cart here and the disc loadout is grippiness. I need grippy putters, mids, etc., because when I'm throwing out here in the cold, I need that level of grip that provides. So that's where the R-Pro Rhyno is, and this is my Ace disc from a few months ago. I'm going to try to replace this with another one, but the fact that it's an R-Pro and it's board flat, love it. Next up, for a little bit of extra stability, the Rhyno X. This is in XT plastic, and this is just a little bit stiffer, just a little bit more stable, and I love it. And both of these I will use for sidearm approaches. If I'm going to break out the sidearm for anything, it's going to be using one of these two. Typically for shorter approaches, I can also do sidearm approaches with the Animal, but that's kind of how that's all sussing out. Last but not least, out of the putter pocket is the R-Pro Pig. Love it. Had this in the bag for 4 years, or this mold I should say. This is my 3rd Pig. I swap them out every year or two as they start to beat in a little bit. But yeah, for R-Pro, it's relatively stiff. It's also relatively tough. It's a tougher version of the R-Pro plastic, and it's just a little bit more stable than these, but a little bit longer distance in terms of the throws. And I also use this backhand and forehand. So now let me turn this around. We'll go to the mid-ranges. First things first, before I get to the main compartment, which is where I'm going to most of the time if I'm not going out of the putter pocket, let's tell you a little bit about this pocket. These are utility putters, basically. If I have any utility putters, they're going to go in here. Now, as it happens, at this time, these are all 3 very grippy putters that also float. So let's just start with the slows. This is the Blunt Gumbputt by DGA, and this is super floppy, and this is great for the occasional, you throw it overhand and it flops on the ground. It's great for approaches because it sticks. You can also throw it at the chains, and it has a really good chance of sitting. Love this. When possible, I'm going to leave it in here because you never know when you need something that'll collapse when it hits the ground, or drop dead essentially when it lands. Next up, something a little bit more sturdy and stiff and less, flimsy, is this Jackrabbit by Lone Star. This is another slow putter, and I'll actually sidearm this if needed. It's very slow, very grippy. modestly stable, but allows me to get this to sit and quit fairly easy. It also floats like the DGA blunt Gumbputt. Last but not least out of this is an R-Pro Hydra. This is very stiff plastic. It's R-Pro, but this is like pro plastic in terms of just stiffness. It's one of the stiffer R-Pro plastics I've ever experienced, but this also floats. And this, again, backhand and forehand. There's a bit of overlap between these two, but this is a little bit slower in terms of the blunt edge, so this will actually sit a little bit slower. It's a little slower, just like this is slower. So if you're looking at speed, this is the slowest, medium slow, modest slow, and that's how these are. Okay, next up, I'm just going to go to this other pocket before we go to the main compartment, because this is where the most interesting stuff is. This is another utility pocket. I'll more likely put drivers here, extra drivers that I need that aren't going to go into the main compartment, or maybe, you know, sunscreen, other things that I might need, mosquito spray, etc., etc. That might go in there, but quite often I'm putting some extra putting putters in here, because I'll just get everything out of the car, grab my Aviar and these other three wiped, stampless R-Pro Aviars, all max weight, all the same plastic and everything, and these all came out of the same run. I just wiped the stamps of these other ones. But yeah, these are all there for putting putters, but this could have other things in it. Okay, now we've made it to the mid-ranges, and I'll only keep 4 of them at this time. There's enough diversity in stability with these 4, so this is really all I need. I don't use mid-ranges as much as I used to. I rely on approach discs most of the time, but these have become staples in my bag. I've got, of course, my Mako3. This is in Star plastic here, max weight. Everything else in here is max weight or within a gram or two of max weight. And that's because I'm in Texas, and we have a lot of wind here. It's not as windy as Kansas, but it's our wind and we love it. And we have to deal with it. So anyways, Mako3, and because, all right, the thing you'll notice is this is a Mako3, this is a Shark3, this is a J, and this is a Rock 3. All these are essentially 3 series discs. The J is essentially the same thing as the MD3 or the Atlas in terms of the mold. So these are the 4 that I use, but I can use them forehand and backhand because they're all dead flat. I love the 3 part of these discs because it keeps these lower profile than the older style discs that these used to replace. But yeah, so Mako3, Shark 3, J, and Rock 3 give me good levels of stability that I need here in the mid-range slot. All right, next up are the Fairway Drivers, and these are probably the most thrown discs in my bag. Normally I keep about between 4 and 6 Fairway Drivers. Right now I'm keeping it at a 7 because I've changed up the approach of what I'm doing. So you'll notice that all these mid-ranges were 5-speed mid-ranges. These approach discs were all 2-speed with the exception of the pig. That's kind of the similar methodology I'm having here. So the 7 Fairway Drivers that I have, 3 of them are 6-speed, and the reason why is because these I will typically throw standstill. These are the max distance standstill discs I will throw. If I need to throw farther than standstill, I'm gonna break out a walk up or a cross step, and then I'll upgrade to the next set of Fairway Drivers. But let's real quick. This is the Leopard I've had for, I don't know, 4 years now. I've thrown this more than any other Fairway Driver in my life, and I still love it. The stamp just finally came off. It just, over the years, it just kept wearing and wearing, and so I wiped the rest of it off and I just wrote Leopard on it. But this is the one I've been using forever. Absolutely love it. It's probably my favorite and most trusty disc. I know it's beat in and understable, but I trust it so much because I've been throwing it. I just have so much experience with it. So bottom line, Leopard. Next up, Cheetah. Now this is a slot normally I put a Leopard 3 in, but this here is, I would say, a little bit slower than a Leopard 3 and a little bit more stable than a Leopard. So that's why I put it in here, because I have other discs that are faster that I can use for that role. This is a 1.6 centimeter rim, just like this, and just like this next disc, the Gazelle. And these are basically your classic Innova 6-speed discs with different stability levels. And that's why I throw them, my friends. These here are my standstill drivers of choice. But wait, there's more. These I will most likely use with a walk-up or a run-up. or you know, my simple 3-step walk up, which is essentially just the cross step. That's these here. I put away my G-Star Hawkeye because it looks too close to my G-Star T-Bird. It's the exact same plastic and color. So I swapped it out for a Star Plastic Hawkeye, and at the moment it's just as stable as this TL. These fly basically identically, but I'm gonna make this my primary cross-step throwing driver, whatever you call it, because I need to beat it in and get it grippy. You know, it's kind of funny here. This is Star Plastic, but this is grippy because I've used it for so much and it's accumulated a bunch of wear and tear throughout the surface. Well, here I applied a little bit of acetone to wipe the stamp, and it's already just a tiny bit grippy. But I'm just going to throw this out. But this is a Hawkeye, aka the FD, the Fairway Driver or Fairway Disc. Love this disc ever since my first scored ace occurred with my Discmania FD. So I've always got to have an FD or an FD style mold in my bag, neutral 7-speed. Now this is a little bit more stable typically than the Hawkeyes or FDs that I throw, but since this is brand new, these are unfortunately the exact same slot. But since I'm going to be wearing this and wearing this to where it beats to where it's that more flippy 7-speed, that's what I'm using this for. But next up, the T-Bird Light. I also use this for straight throws that needs just a touch of stability, and turn protection is what I call it when you have a 0 turn, and it just kind of helps minimize the chance for turns. So I love the TL. Next up, and that's in Star Plastic. All these look to be, yeah, all those in Star Plastic. So this is the first one in G-Star, and this one here, fairly well used, not as stable as like a Star or Champion T-Bird, but pretty close. But that's exactly why I have this disc, because a regular brand new Star or Champion T-Bird is just a touch too stable for what I'm looking for this slot. So this slot is perfectly filled by this G-Star T-Bird. Next up, I would put a Champion T-Bird in this slot, but this is just a touch more stable than the Champion T-Bird that I've got, and it's a little bit less glidey because it's more flat here. So this is a Banshee, and this is one of the few discs at this time of year that I'll throw in Champion plastic, mainly because they don't really make this in the other plastics, and this is one that I have. And it's somewhat used, so it's a little bit more grippy than it was when I first bought it off the shelf. But this is my Firebird. It's essentially a 7-speed Firebird. Absolutely love this disc. Okay, last but not least are the distance drivers. And one thing you'll notice here is that all of these are 11-speed. So just as I have a set of 7-speed drivers, some 6-speed drivers, 5-speed mid-ranges, and then 2 and 3-speed approach discs, I try to go by rim diameter just to make everything somewhat consistent in terms of distance and speed, but have different levels of stability. And that's kind of how I've set up these 4 distance drivers. So I'm trying to get away from using these until I really have the power to use them, but there are some shots where these effectively act as utility discs for me when I need just the absolute max distance I could possibly get. If I hit this on the right angle and I'm not throwing into the wind, that's where the Star Mamba comes in. It's a great disc. It took me forever, probably until my 3rd year of playing, before I even decided I would throw one of these, simply because I'm not a fan of being a 300-foot person that throws 300 feet, bringing out distance drivers. You know, for the most part, I would, you know, my max was 250, and so I would never throw a distance driver then. But now I'm in the 300 range, and I'm getting into the distance where these have some use. But this Mamba is a straight flyer for me, given the level of power I currently have, although I can throw it in such a way that it'll turn and stay turned and drift quite a bit. Next up, I've got this Maya. This is Infinite Discs. Disc is actually a turn top and a Mamba bottom. It's a touch more stable than this Mamba. In fact, right now, these two are almost the same stability, this Star Mamba and this G-Star Maya or G-Blend Maya. But I'm using this because this has more grip. That said, this may be the first to go. If I need to put in another disc, this might make room. You know, this might go away so I can do that. So the Maya, throw that. It's a little bit more stable than the Mamba typically, but this is a brand new Star Mamba, and it's about the same. Those two are almost the same slot. I also have a G-Star Mamba, but for right now I'm going to go with this. We got a G-Star Mystere here. This is more stable than these, and I've been able to get some crazy distance with this because of the glide. Sometimes too much distance, but This comes out for the wide open shots. That's essentially what these are for, the wide open throws. But I love the Mystere. Last but not least, the Wraith. I don't use this very often, but if I have to make a long distance throw over out of bounds, I need it to come back. Even though it's G-Star, it's in that range of stability where it's almost a meat hook for me. If I throw it dead flat, it's not going to flip up at all. It'll start getting ready to hyzer. So that's it right there. So with that said, I'll wrap up with talking about the rest of my cart. Okay, really just want to wrap up by saying a few things about how I use this cart. So one thing you'll notice is these discs are basically sorted, you know, left to right, top, you know, from fastest to slowest, and then they're oriented in that direction. Most people actually have these oriented this way, but the reason why I have this oriented in this direction is because I'm almost always pulling these out with my left hand. I learned a long time ago, sometimes I would jam my finger going into here, and a lot of times this is my throwing hand, I don't want to mess it up, so I'd rather, if I'm going to make a mistake, do this. And now I've just gotten used to pulling out discs with my thumb or my finger based on where I'm oriented, but I use my left hand for that. So that's why I'm oriented in the same way that Nate Turner you know, orients his discs. The next thing you'll notice is all my discs are somewhat color coded by stability. So typically the neutral or straight flyers are in sort of the yellow plastic. You know, they may be a slightly darker yellow if they're a little bit more stable. Orange if they're overstable. And I try to have red if they're very overstable, or in this case pink because it's a pig and it's overstable. That's kind of how I do stuff. So Mako3, you know, is a straight flat disc, so it's yellow. Same thing with the Leopard. Same thing with the Hawkeye. You know, and then overstable is like, you know, to some extent the J, Shark, Rock 3, etc., etc. So that's kind of how I set all this up. And one more thing new to the cart, at least in the last few months, certainly since the last in the bag or in the cart, is this new Infinite Discs Mini putter pocket or power pocket. And the reason why I use this is because I can put 5 or 6 discs in here and this compact cart will not tip over. It's perfect to put like 3 discs here, 2 or 3 discs here, and I'm basically good to go. Also, there's a pocket for my rangefinder, so I do of course use a Bushnell rangefinder, and it fits here perfectly, even with the TPU case on it, adding to the bulk of the rangefinder. It still fits in there snugly. And of course I put my Mini in here, and then when I get out of the car, the Mini comes in my pocket and the phone goes in here. And of course I've got a little, you know, pocket here, got a HAL hanger for this, umbrella holder for the GoPro and all the other stuff, and that's basically it. So blender bottle. So yeah, all the usual stuff. If you see my in the bags, you're familiar with my setup to some extent, but these are the changes that I've gone through with it. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, as I have more fun disc golf content on the way. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.